Pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Could we have roll call, please?
Mayor Smith,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Valentine, Trustee Stelter,
Here.
Trustee Schwartz,
Here.
Trustee Check,
Here.
Trustee Hunter. Here, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Before I ask for a, let's see, Sam, can I go ahead and remove the minutes, or does that need to be done by a vote?
That's gonna be.
I need. So the meeting minutes were included in the consent agenda, but they are not included in the packet. We will get them at the next meeting. So I guess at this point, we need a motion to remove the minutes from the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to remove the minutes both for August 20 and August 27th consent agenda.
Thank you.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So then we'll go back to approval of the agenda with disbursements only.
Motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
Are we approving the consent agenda or
Yes.
the full agenda?
Full agenda.
Full agenda first.
Yes, full agenda first. So now we're doing the agenda without the minutes in the consent agenda. And
I motioned, Trustee Stelter second.
Yes.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Now we will move to announcements.
Okay, set my 3 minutes. I'm gonna talk fast. Okay, so these are our appreciations and good news. And tonight I went to the Arbol Farmers Market to get these. So thank you to the U Car Club for the fabulous job of organizing the Colorado Grand Car Rally at Town Park. What a treat for us car aficionados. Congratulations to Paonia 7th and 8th grade teacher Ellie Roberts for being selected as a National Book Foundation Teaching Fellow. There were only 8 selected from across the United States, and she was one of them. Thanks to the person who cut up the tree that fell across Pitkin Road, it's a perfect example of community spirit. I appreciate the community for rallying around my friend who is sick, for bringing her food, taking her appointments, and just showing up for her. I appreciate the bounty of the Valley. I appreciate the local woman who asked about my family and who I'm now collaborating with to support our local teens in the struggles they are facing. I appreciate the town crew for taking care of the elm trees that were coming up near Creek Vista. It makes my walks so much easier, and I appreciate them for taking such good care of the park. I love the Arbol Farmers Market, and I appreciate the Learning Council for making it happen. There was lots of love for the market. It was fabulous. We so appreciate Amber Kay for working so hard to keep our irrigation water running this summer. Let's see. I appreciate Alicia, who happens to be my mom. I have so much to be grateful for, and I'm all about the safety, and the town crew is always so quick to respond. Let's see, thanks to the police for being so community-minded. I send much appreciation to the whole Orlando family for their engagement in the community and their farm Rockin' Roots. I so appreciate Morgan and town staff. She's great with people and is always so helpful. I appreciate Graham and Dolly for their bright and shiny kindness in town. I appreciate that this summer has not been too hot and all the rain. I feel like a bear. I feel like a bear going into hibernation for the amount that she eats. I love our town. We are so lucky. And then finally, I'm so grateful for my friend who only had weeks to live, but is feeling good enough to go fishing. So there was so much goodness at the Arbol Farmers Market. And thanks to everyone for letting me pick their appreciation friends.
Any other announcements from the trustees or the administrator? Okay. With that, we'll move on to the public comment segment where if folks would raise their hand and I'll be recognized by me, come to the podium and state your name and the street you live on. It's 3 minutes, 1 time per item, and direct comments to the mayor. And no responses will be made by staff or board during the meeting, no derogatory or demeaning statements For public displays, please be respectful, and for this public comment session, anyone is welcome to come up and speak for a maximum of 3 minutes on any topic not on the agenda. And I noticed the gentleman on the left with your hand up first.
Thank you.
My left.
So my name is Jeff Holbert, HOLBOT. Live at 106 3rd Street, East Side. I moved into that apartment with Pace lot like that. So anyway, I talked with the town manager about putting in the tap that I paid for the moratorium. And I just happened to run into him yesterday again. And I went in to pay for a van inspection that the police department did. So my mom is Lynn Bear. She used to be the president of the senior center. Prior to the moratorium, we talked about building an addition onto the back side of her garage so that I could be close there. And talked to the town at that time, and they said that I could just put in an extra water meter and not have to buy a water tap. Well, there was some discussion between myself and my brother in Alaska, and then I could see there was going to be a big issue if we outlive her, and she's 97, so we split that property in half, and so the north side became 594 Grand Avenue, and created the Bear Holbert minor subdivision. So when I saw that there was going to be a moratorium listed in the paper, I bought a water and sewer tap for that property. And I've kept up the monthly payments on it and everything. So, I asked him yesterday how it was coming along, and he said that he had turned it over to the board and to the attorney. I had gotten building plans for a building prior to that, and then and I provided that proof of payment for the water and sewer taps with copies of the checks and a copy of the receipt the town gave me for being paid in full, and had building plans, but then COVID hit, and so that really set me back. Anyway, now I'd like to get the meter installed and hopefully maybe be able to do the foundation this year and the pipes laid and stuff, and build a house starting in the spring with my mom living there with more noise at the State Department, which is right there, and just more noise and stuff. She gets more
I have
excited.
to tell you, your 3 minutes is up.
Okay,
But
just consider
appreciate the information.
Approving having the meter put in. Thank you.
And Mr. Schwartz?
Jeff Schwartz, 39126 Highway 133. I just want to say thank you guys for the use of the parking lot. It worked fabulously. It was effective and efficient and safe. The event was great, and we brought a lot of people to town, and really the use of that parking lot was really paramount to the success of the whole event. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great show.
Great show.
Anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? Marlene, come on in, and I used your last name, but I forget what it is. I got Marlene though.
Yeah,
Apologies.
There's no sign-up sheet.
Oh, there isn't?
To quote section 1 of the Colorado Constitution, all political power is vested in and derived from the people. All government, originates from the people, is founded upon their will only, and is solely for the good of the whole. End of quote. The Colorado Constitution clearly states that the people, rather than politicians, should determine the path government takes. I attended both of the Bruner meetings. Previous Paonia politicians generally spoke against Bruner. Local citizens very, very clearly spoke favorably of Bruner. Trustees clearly violated the spirit of Section 1 of the Colorado Constitution when they ousted Mr. Bruner against the will of the people. Susan Watson and Thomas Markle, both very knowledgeable and involved in town affairs, stated how they were treated negatively when their opinions differed from others. Paonia trustees appear to have a history of not liking people who do their job of keeping fellow trustees and staff accountable. According to the spirit of the Colorado Constitution, only the people, the voting people of Paonia, should have the right to remove Bruner from office. The statute that says a majority of trustees can oust a fellow trustee is in itself a violation of the Colorado Constitution. Paonia has an almost continuous record of people in charge who violated the trust of the citizen. Bruner would have been negligent to not poke his nose into the routine business of the town. I think Mr. Stelter's vote at the end exemplified the attitude of the trustees during those two meetings. Mr. Stelter would slam down the gavel whenever he thought somebody shouldn't speak. And repeatedly, the attorney said, decisions should be made on the preponderance of the evidence that's presented tonight. Mr. Stelter went back and said he knew Mr. Bruner for many years and Mr. Bruner needed to be ousted. That is in direct contradiction to the instructions by the attorney. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I saw another hand. Okay, please come on up.
Thank you. My name is Samantha Staley. I'm at 1004 3rd. And I will also email us. It's longer, again, around 3 minutes. So I'll email you a copy. But I'm here to thank you for the new speed limits in the town and the signage that's been put up by staff and all the efforts around that. I'm excited that there's new energy around safe routes to school. My partner Ben Graves has been really involved with that, and it is very exciting to see kind of what feels like some momentum, because I think it is time for safer, kinder, slower streets. So I'm here tonight to ask you to please do what's in your influence today or tomorrow to help enforce the speed limits. My plea is for more and maybe whatever is reasonable maximum enforcement. I'm sad to share that on a daily basis, I work from home at the corner of 3rd and Rio Grande. Really well familiar with how busy those streets are. And I'm continued to be appalled at how fast people drive, where they widen out and there's long straightaways, Pan American, Rio Grande, north of 3rd Street, east of the tracks. I am confident that many people are frequently going 30 miles an hour in what are 20 mile per hour, 15 mile per hour zones. My email will tell you how I think I know that to be true. And as a mom of 2 young children who are now wanting to bike to school, it feels terrifying. And the sad truth is that only 3 blocks away, I don't feel I can let them do it. I have some statistics I'll have in the letter to you, but the grim consequences of speeding and pedestrian collisions are very well studied. If just an adult is hit by a vehicle going 30 miles per hour, it's a 1 in 4 chance they will die. Those numbers drop off dramatically at 25 and 20 and go up dramatically after 30. Just today, oddly enough, the National News reported on breaking research by the insurance industry that larger vehicles are obviously much more dangerous. That's a 3 minute?
No, it's still got time.
Okay. So 30 inches or less with a roof or with a hood, they're 50% more likely to cause a death with a collision than if the hood height is 30 inches or less. I own a big truck. We're a truck culture. We need working trucks. But an average, Ford F-250 heavy duty is 55 inches off the ground, not 30. So we have bigger cars, heavier cars, and I don't know if it was the result of the pandemic. It certainly seemed to shift after that, but it just seems like driving behavior has gotten worse, even as we do want people to slow down. So is that it? Okay. So on the email, there's 20 people I routed today that support this. So we'll be back and want to do everything we can to support you in this effort.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll move on to the agenda to the consent agenda. Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to draw your attention to that Mayor Tim Valentine has joined us.
Oh, good. Okay. Hi, John. Can you hear us all right? Okay, very good. So we'll move to disbursements, and I just wonder if anyone has any questions on disbursements before I ask for a motion to approve. Okay, motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Staff reports. And we'll start with Stefan when he gets a chance, but in the meantime, I'm gonna start this down to sign, if you would.
Autumn wants to join this position.
I wonder, let's go ahead and do the police report. Sure, thank you very much.
Okay. Sergeant Henderson attended taser instructor training. He's now a certified taser instructor. He successfully recertified all the officers in the departments on our taser conducted energy device, and 5 of our officers are now carrying that device on duty. So that's big for us. That kind of falls in line with our goal of having in-house instructors so we can stay on top of those certifications and continue that training throughout. We're not relying on other departments are sending our officers other places all the time to get recertified. It's good to have that exposure if you go to other trainings outside of our department. It's very nice for some of these core trainings, we can do those. As we transition to fall, we're seeing more bear activity. So we're just asking everybody to kind of be bear aware, give them plenty of space, particularly around our orchards, the river park. If you see something, you're free to call in to town hall. Let us know about it. We'll go check the area out. We're just asking everybody to kind of give bears their space. It's just a part of living here, and we do have those in town right now. The 4 newish patrol vehicles are now in service and being used daily, and 1 officer is utilizing a former patrol vehicle. We're working to rebadge coming weeks, so we'll kind of match our black and white team. And that's where we're at. Those are operational on the road. And so that part is Trustee Schwartz kind of alluded to in a previous meeting, but Officer Bardison was fortunate enough to win a local prize drawing, which included an e-bike. He graciously donated the e-bike to the county police department to help reactivate the department's bicycle patrol program. Right now, what we're working on is reviewing policies from other departments that have a program so we can get one that kind of fits what we want to do, and creating a training curriculum so that our officers can train and kind of be safe on that bike and understand what's involved with being exposed and on a bicycle, and just how best to serve the community with a bike cop, so to speak. Hopefully, in a perfect world, we have that going by the end of the fall, but our goal is really spring of 2025, we have all of our policy and we have officers trained and ready to be on the street on a bike. I think that's going to be big for us, especially during our events, our festivals. We've checked this multiple times, but it's actually more efficient to get from the park to Grand Avenue on a bicycle than a patrol car during some of our events like Harvest Fest, 4th of July. A lot of those events just given the status of the traffic in town, how far it is, but a bicycle actually is a more efficient way to get downtown. That's what I got. Can I add you?
So there are, if you look in the call logs, there are a number of traffic stops. One of those incidents did happen on 3rd Street with 51 and a 20. So, these things, we are stepping up traffic enforcement Petey's doing a phenomenal job at doing that. And,
Yeah,
Officer Barstow as well.
yeah, our traffic units, are rolling pretty heavily on Grand Avenue at all times of the day, particularly that Fourth and Grand area, in the mornings and in the afternoons of school. And then they're transitioning after school to some Third and Second Street patrols. The thing that is a little bit challenging is to patrol school zone makes it kind of difficult for us to also patrol the main thoroughfares through town. A lot of people are coming and going to work because we're at the school in the morning. That being said, they are hitting some of these areas. And the other thing we're doing to track some of this is when the guys are doing increased patrols in an area where they're sitting running traffic, they're running a report about it. You know, this day, at this time, you know, I did increased patrol here. This was the speeds that I saw. And then we'll kind of notate where their traffic stops, where their verbal warnings, where their citations. But as you can see, we're generally seeing speeds are coming down in line with some of our new speed limits. But when they're above, they're significantly above. And those are resulting in traffic tickets. But yeah, we're trying to spread out. We're getting a lot of requests for the speed trailer. We're putting that out. We'll run it until it starts to run out of battery. We charge it back up and then put it back into rotation. But that speed trailer is being heavily used, and it's also being requested by citizens, which is great. We encourage that. If you have an area you would like to see that trailer, please reach out to town hall and let us know, and we'll see if we can get it set up.
Any questions for police, please? Yes.
I do have a comment. I've noticed that Third Street has gotten significantly better since the increased patrols. I'm sitting on the porch a lot, so, and I do see it, and it's really significantly different. And I thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. So town administrator.
I apologize, it doesn't look like the entire budget actuals made it the agenda packet. It was supposed to, but it was just one page. So I provided paper copies and it will be available on the website. In lieu of a town administrator's report this meeting, I wanted to show you what I have been working on because it's done. Our fiscal year 2023 transmittal letter is done. So I've gone through the audit. This is an anticipation of our auditors coming to present the financial statements during our next meeting in 2 weeks on the 27th or 24th. I did produce a transmittal letter that is to the board, to mayor and our residents that goes through kind of a breakdown on what you'll see within those financial statements and that management discussion and analysis letter that is also, I want to go through a little bit. The transmittal letter just tells people what to expect and how to read the audit. So it's kind of gives a 30,000 foot view of what our financial, how we are financially. I do want to say that in the draft of the audit, the auditor gave an unmodified and unqualified opinion with no findings or recommendations for correction. So that's a big deal. That means that this auditor has gone through and seen nothing that needed to change. We would have gotten a comment had our trash fund had a third year where it was operating at a deficit. It was corrected in 23. So I'll go into that in a little bit further detail. Bear with me, this took a lot of time. The MD&A is something that I went over with department heads today as well. I didn't realize I didn't do that with them last year, so they were excited to actually see what, how we are financially. Let's see if there's anything else in the transmittal letter. Okay, so the MD&A, the management discussion and analysis, this is really the meat and potatoes of what management has to do when an audit comes through. So after an independent auditor completes their audit and they present the financial statements, it's my responsibility and staff's responsibility to go through that, review that audit, and give this discussion to help readers understand what they're reading. Basic financial highlights. The town's assets and deferred outflows of resources exceeded our liabilities and deferred inflows of resources by $16,877,664. That's our net position. And to be really clear, that's not just cash. That's not just cash in the bank. That's everything. That's our buildings. That's our pipes in the ground. That's our equipment. That's all of our assets. Our total net position is comprised of the following: net investment capital assets, which makes up the biggest portion of our standing of $11,625,096. And that's plants, equipment, infrastructure, roads, bridges, sidewalks, distribution collection systems, with net accumulated depreciation and reduced for outstanding debt related to the purchase of construction of capital assets. Our net position of $796,606 are restricted by constraints imposed from outside of the town, such as bond covenants, grants, or grantors, laws, regulations. We might have to have a debt reserve or a bridge reserve. That all of those are included in that restriction. Unrestricted, unreserved net position. This is cash on hand at the end of 2023, so December 31st, 2023, is $4,455,952. That represents the portion available to maintain our continuing obligations to residents and creditors. So the good news, and I go through this quite often in the MD&A, is that we have no general obligation debt. We don't have a general fund bond. We haven't bonded something for like streets. That all of our bond debt is within our enterprise utilities, so within our enterprise funds, those business activities. This unrestricted, unreserved net position is really, really good. But if we had a general bond or some sort of general obligation debt, we would have to commit all of those tax revenues to the interest and principal payments. So let's say that's where some communities kind of get into some trouble, where they have to do some staff reductions or reductions in other services and programs, because they first and foremost, that bond debt would have to be paid first. So if we can stay away from general obligation debt, we want to do that. Let's keep it in enterprise utilities. The town's governmental funds comprise of the general fund, sales tax, capital improvement fund, and non-major funds. Those non-major funds are the sidewalk fund, those kinds of funds. And that's reported total ending fund balance of $2,804,139. This compares to the prior year ending fund balance of $2,471,248, showing an increase of $332,899 during fiscal year 23. At the end of the fiscal year 23, unassigned fund balance for the general fund was $909,507, or 51% of the total general fund expenditures. So everything that we spent out of the general fund, we are covered by 51%. So if that were to say there was no tax revenue coming in, no sales tax, no property tax coming in, or any sort of ad valorem tax for the entire fiscal year, we would still be able to continue operations for 51% of the year. So, sales tax capital improvement fund was $90,084, or 298% of what we actually spent in 23. So we brought in more money than what we spent for capital improvements for that sales tax capital improvement fund. And then the other non-major funds, which is quite large, is $1,054,556, or 527% of what we spent. That's that sidewalk fee. Streets is in there as well. So that's highway user tax fund. Yes.
So does that constitute surplus?
Yes, yes, that's exactly right. It is surplus. So different from a business, where a business has profits that they can then use to improve their services or products to their customers. We're a government, we can't really have profit, but we can have surplus that can be used for projects at a later time. So they're uncommitted, but we're going to commit them to improvements in the future. So in a future fiscal year. The management discussion and analysis document introduces the auditor's financial statements, which are government-wide financial statements, fund financial statements, and the notes to the basic financial statements. There's also a required supplemental information and then supplementary information. Required, the RSI is related to budget, and we'll go into that Um, Our net position, and most of this is then discussing what kind of funds we have. There's governmental activities, business type activities. We have a general fund made up of major and non-major funds. And we have an enterprise or business activity, which is made up of water, sewer, trash enterprise funds, which can operate like a business. Meaning we can have a profit, but we're still committing those funds towards future improvements. Okay, government, the statement of net position. So the worksheets were actually really easy to make this year because I already had the template made and I just had to change numbers. It was more of an analysis that took time because there were some things that happened. Namely, we saw less sales tax revenue in 23 due to the closure of Highway 133. So it was closed for a significant portion of our tourist season, was constructed, and we felt that. We felt less revenues. That's why we had to have a budget amendment. So there's a budget amendment for $192,000 at the end of 23 that covered our unrealized sales tax revenue from what happened with the bridge. But with any sort of statement of net position, you want to look at the bottom numbers, right? And so in 2023 compared to 2022, you want to see the 23 number going up. That's our total net position. If it's going down, we've got problems. That's usually an indicator that there's, usually an indicator that our revenues are not enough to cover our expenses for services and programs. Our biggest jumps were in our business type activities. Our total net position there increased significantly between the 2 years, and then our overall position also increased. And we're going to go into that in a little bit in more detail with the next worksheet, which is the summary of changes. You'll see that you can see in 23, we saw less revenue in governmental activities than what we did in 22. Maybe not, what was that? It was in taxes. If you go under general taxes, you'll see that in 23, that includes sales and use tax. We saw $1,639,806. In 22, we realized $1,783,051. And so there's where we saw less revenue. That's why we had to do that budget. Our program expenses increased significantly between the 2 years. However, that's explainable. And that is explained in fiscal year 2023, we saw a decrease in tourism over 2022. But what we also saw was we were becoming fully staffed. The police department became fully staffed. Public Works became closer to fully staffed. We bought new equipment. We had to do 3 emergency sewer repairs for catastrophic failures, one planned repair. We had unbudgeted or unplanned expenses like from employee turnover, such as hiring an interim town administrator, hiring me, hiring a financial consulting firm. All of those things were unbudgeted going into 23, and that's why we saw more expenditures coming out. So turnover is not a good thing. It's very expensive. When we look at governmental revenues by source, this between business type activities and governmental activities, it's going to look a little bit different. So governmental revenues by source, the majority of our funding came from taxes, right? That's how general fund operates. It's how we provide most of our programs and services. We're going to break that down a little bit by department here a little bit. Governmental activities. So this is where you can see where those revenues actually get spent within general government. General government was $606,514, and we recovered some of that cost through like fees for services, charges for services, things like that. We didn't recover a lot, but we still recovered more than most other departments. Our culture and recreation department did see a lot of cost recovery. And that was mainly due to Conservation Trust Fund being applied to the parks operations. So in years past, we've held on to it, done the project, and then held it for a few more years, done a project. This, in 23, we used it for not only park improvements, because we did quite a few park improvements. Apple Valley Park, we did electric work that was unplanned and budgeted for a pickleball tournament. Then we also had improvements to the stage, and we also used some of the Conservation Trust Fund, like it can be used, to pay for salaries for people that are maintaining the parks. And so that's why that was offset from taxes. And when I say tax, I mean ad valorem taxes like property tax, sales use tax, things like that. So we helped offset that cost with state money, since our parks are used by more than just residents, right? The cost recovery. So this is a good indicator to see if our fees for services are on target or not. And I can tell you that in some areas, they're probably not quite on target. So in general government, that includes building, community development, planning. We recovered 21.4% of what it cost us to provide those services. And that's also my salary, clerk salary, public works director, that kind of stuff. In public safety, we saw program revenues of $11,876, but a total cost for services of $861,951. So we only recovered 1.4%. That's normal for public safety because it truly is tax driven. You look at like the fire district, and they receive their funding from taxes, from a district tax. So it's no different than something like that. Public works, and I should say that the public safety, some of that returned or revenue was due to grants for like trainings and things like that. So it was state sending back, reimbursing us for sending guys to training. Public works was $39,710, which was 8.2%. Again, culture and recreation had that 43.8% recovery because we used Conservation Trust Fund. Another way to visualize that on total cost and then net cost is just another graph. Our business type activities, this is what's going to be different than what you saw in governmental activities. So in our business type revenue, instead of it being tax driven, this is charges for services. So it's you use water, you use wastewater, that you're going to be charged for that service. And as you can see, 94% of our business type activities was made up by charges for services. 6% was capital grants. That was in wastewater for the Doris Avenue sewer line replacement. And so we recovered some of that cost as well. And this is where it's really important to actually see where the trash and trash utility or trash service came out of the red into the black. So let's see. Resolution 2020-14 raised garbage rates going into 23, which was necessary to correct course. And so let's see. So it was the net operating income for 2023 was $23,131 in trash, which is a redirection from 2022 when the fund experienced a loss of operating income for $29,334. And the ending net position of $279,599 brings the trash fund to a better ending position of both 2022 and 2021. So we're kind of back to where we were in 2020, which, for 1 year being able to correct a downward trend for 2 years, we've done pretty good. So it's corrected course and is experiencing the increase in that position. It brings a close ending position for end of fiscal year 2020. This is necessary. If we wouldn't have done that, we would have gotten an opinion from the auditor that you need to think about doing something here like now, because it would have been 3 years in a row.
And it's 3 years though.
It's like it's not set in stone. It could be, an auditor could say, here's my opinion for after 1 year. It all would depend on how bad that deficit is. For example, if we were trying to use other funds or a loan to offset, the trash operations, that would have been a comment. It wouldn't have mattered if it was 1 year or 2 years or 1 year. They would have made a comment. For the sewer utility, we saw a net operating income, that's profit, of 343,126 that goes into our pool for future improvements. We know they're coming. We've already approved a project needs assessment for obtaining debt funding to fix some of our collection system. And then water utility, we saw a net increase in that position of 146,173, and we had an operating income of 199,905 at the end of 2023. I expect that to go higher in 24, only because we haven't done the projects yet that we were hoping to do. They will be, because these funds will be hit in 25 for sure. So it's coming. But the good thing is that for the first time in 3 years, we're able to show that trash it's barely above that line, but it's above that line. So that's a good way to keep going. In our budget to actuals, which I'll go over after this MD&A very briefly, I know I'm taking up a lot of time. We already have a net operating income so far to date of like $79,000. So we're doing that. Trend is good because we're going to need a garbage truck. We're going to need to do certain things. It's coming. I mean, if we had a garbage truck down right now, we have nothing. So, those are things that we have to plan for. In the governmental funds, we have 749,992 that are restricted, committed, or assigned. That's the majority of that is within our bridge reserve. It's stuff that we have to keep. And then our ending fund balance in general fund, which means that was unassigned, was 2.8 million. No, that includes the 749. So it's a little over $2 million that would be unassigned. We showed an increase of 332,891 over the prior year with our ending fund balances and governmental activities. That's a good thing. And let's see. This is just a breakdown of the general fund and proprietary funds, or those business type activities. I want to say our highlights so fiscal year 2023 budget had one amendment. That was resolution 2023-18. The amendment increased the appropriation of the general fund by $200,000 due to lower than anticipated revenue, and within the wastewater sewer fund by $1.2 million due to unexpected emergency repairs. The final fiscal year 2023 budget included $2,035,213 in expected revenues. The actual revenues for fiscal year 2023 were $1,709,015 for a negative variance of $326,198. That's why we had to do that budget amendment to bring up revenues to cover our expenditures. Investment. So the one thing that I can say across the board is moving things into Kahlo Trust has been phenomenal for our investments. Our investment earnings increased significantly from original estimates because of higher than anticipated interest rates, and the increase in revenues resulted in more funds to invest. Part of that was due to, at the fourth quarter of 2022, the Federal Reserve increased interest rates across the board. I mean, it was like one a month. It was 0.5%. That was really good for our investment funds. Really bad if you're trying to buy goods, to do projects, but really good for investments. And so our investment earnings really helped offset the cost of some of our lost revenue. So it was really good. And they're still doing really well. We did have, and I'll go into that in a little bit. So the final general, after everything was done, we did have a favorable variance of $105,252, $2, and that was due to amending the general fund budget and pulling cash reserves. Capital assets. So this is going to be kind of eye-opening from last year to this year. Governmental activities, let's just start there. It's the worst one. So when you see that percentage depreciated, you want to see the lower number, because once it reaches 100, that means its useful life is done. You might as well send it for scrap. It's toast. In this case, we saw our total depreciable assets go from $5,446,826. We did some investment that became $5,484,578, but it wasn't enough to outpace the depreciation. So in governmental activities, we saw depreciation of about $200,000 more than over 2022, and that ended our percentage depreciated from 40% in 22 to 49% in 2023. So that is like this building. investing in this building, public works building, our equipment, like police equipment. So hopefully in 24, we're going to see that trend either kind of reduce or slow. It won't be going close to 9%. You know, it might still increase, but not so quickly. Business type activity, so we invested a lot, not because we had it planned, but because we had to. It was emergencies. And so between 2022 at 47%, in 2023 it was 40%. That was, you can see under 23 in collection systems, we invested, you know, our capital assets were $1,679,685. That was all of those emergency sewer repairs to our mains that we did. When you compare that to 2022, which is 925,517. Overall, our total capital assets, our net, it's in a positive direction. So we went from 46% depreciated overall to 41%. We went from $14,939,134 in 22 to $15,193,171 in 23. That's a good trend to see. And it's done that every year. From 2022 to 2021, we're seeing it go up, our net assets.
Can I ask a question here?
Oh, yeah.
Or do we keep going?
No, go ahead.
Okay, so for buildings, why in 2022 was it 1.4 million? Like, is it just?
Are
It
you?
looks like you've added those. So look at the building line.
Mhm.
And the total for 2022, you have 1.4 million. I think that should be 703,000.
Yeah, I'll have to look at my worksheet. That's a good catch. Thank you. That's why it's a draft before it's ready for so I'll have to look at that because something doesn't look right in 2022 for governmental activities either. Good catch.
Can you say what you said? 1.4 is
Yeah.
the 2022 and it's almost half
It
in
should be
2023.
like 703.
Yeah, there's something wrong with that entire line.
Gotcha, based on the columns on the left, so thank you.
Yeah, but what you can see is that we haven't invested anything in buildings. But that line I'll address. Thank you for that catch. The town's business type active 40%. Okay, yeah. So with the town's business type activities, 40% of the depreciable capital assets were depreciated on December 31st, 2023, comparable to 47% on December 31st, 2022. This is a positive indicator that the town is investing in its business type activities and that investment is outpacing depreciation. However, most of the improvements were related to emergency repairs to the town's wastewater collection system and ought to be planned instead of waiting until critical failure. So we kind of have to say, hey, yeah, it's great, but here's the reason for that. And it's something that we need to work on. Our long-term debt. So overall, it was good to see that things went down. There is something that we're finally reporting on. I don't know why it wasn't in the 2022 because we did have a lease, but it was our copier, that 22,515. That's our copier for our lease. It wasn't in 22. We caught it this year. It was put in. It's now we're reporting it. So that's why it's showing up as new debt, even though it was really new for 2022. Overall, though, you can see that the loans are being reduced. We are actually paying them off. Not as fast as I'd like, but we still have a lot of outstanding debt. So our total outstanding debt is $4,405,028. Most of that, is the general government activities or general fund debt that we have is related to compensated absences, and that's really dependent on what an employee wants to use them. That's why we report them as a liability. So if an employee wants to use them in the next year or the year after, that's why they're considered long-term debt. We've capped it though, so an employee just can't rack up 500 hours and carry it over year after year. There's only that carryover of 40 hours. So
Can you briefly describe each of, like the CWR PDA loan?
Yep, it's-
Each of those.
So, both of the CWR PDA loan and the WPA loan are related to water debt. So things that we're still paying off for improvements to water treatment facilities. I believe one of those, I can't remember if it's the RPDA loan, was related to the last time that the water tank was lying. And that's when they did that food grade wax that's deteriorating now. And then the 2020 revenue refunding bond, that's the sewer bond, that was for wastewater. I don't know if it was for improvements at the treatment plant, but it also had something to do with, it's collections, but it also had something to do with like some water mains or wastewater mains being installed. And then the lease financing equipment, that's our copier, and compensated absence, like over that.
You know when we're projected to pay off these?
Yeah, so that's going to be shown in the audit, which you don't have. That'll be presented in our meeting in two weeks. I'm glad you caught that because now I can actually fix that worksheet, so it's all ready to go. But there's a breakdown, and it shows when we're expected to pay it off. It's in the 30s. One of them's in the 30s. One of them's later. Let's see. And that's it for the MD&A. Okay.
Are we still on audit or moving the budget down?
I'm getting ready to move the budget
Can
down.
I just ask a couple more questions?
Yeah.
Okay, did we meet our goal of having, we have a goal of July of having the audit done or submitted? What's the status of that?
It's not submitted. So it will be submitted after the 24th once you've accepted it.
And then will we have to, I would love to have time to look at it ahead of time.
It'll be in the agenda packet.
Okay, great. So we'll have the weekend to do that.
And we want the auditors to be here. The reason they aren't here is because I didn't contact them. And so today, otherwise it would have been presented today. I wanted to give them enough time, and so they'll be at the 24th.
Did we get dinged because we're not on time?
Historically, we haven't been on time for like 6 years, and this is the good news is that trend is getting shorter and shorter. So if you remember, 22's audit was done in February of this year. 23, we're going to meet our. The state has said by September 30th, you have to have your audit in. So we're going to meet that by the 24th. It's done. Any questions? I mean, the good news is that we're showing a very healthy financial position, and we're increasing where it needs to be increased. The budget to actuals is also included. I know that the packets only had that one sheet. That was, instead of saving it as a workbook, it was shaped, it saved as one page. That's how it got into the agenda packet. On the CD that's listed there, the 181 with that 5% interest rate, it did mature. I have since moved it as of yesterday. It's now moved into the money market account. And once everything's cleared and done, it'll be transferred over into our Column Trust investment account for water, and that's that that new one that we had created, that sub account ending in 8,005.
Okay, so I was like, the water account seemed really low, but that CD, that 212,000, that's in the water.
That's what we're going to move. So we're going to move that 212 into the water account.
Okay, because that CD is a water kind of.
It's our accountants are wanting us to do something different with combining our water and wastewater to make it just one enterprise fund with sub-funds. I don't know if that's something I would recommend. They're wanting to, and I understand for ease of reporting, I understand why they want to do it. I also understand that it helps by combining both water and sewers assets to allow for us to go for larger loans to fix infrastructure. But I also like having things separate in case one fails. So that's really a policy call that's come to you. But that CD is getting moved. So since this has been done, it's being moved. The good news in our general fund. So over the last few months, you've seen things where it's like, oh, we're looking like we're going to need to do a budget amendment. That bottom number, net surplus or deficit. Oh, we can't see it because, okay. Net surplus or deficit, where in the past it was in parentheses. This month it is not in parentheses, so we're on a good course. The issue was that the state was being delayed in setting sales and use tax. Then they told us in a recent email that what we have may not be right, and so they were working on something in their system. And that was the last we heard. So that was about a week and a half ago. So we're still waiting to hear back from the state on what's going on with sales and use tax. But the good news is we've seen it come to our account. It's been direct deposited, and at the end of the day, we have a net surplus of $84,368.19. And that adds all of these different departments together, and then takes it towards what was revenue. The number we want to be at for the end of August is 67%. Administration is right on. Police is about 8% low. Building is low, 44%. Streets is low, 13%. However, that's an inflated number because we didn't move forward with Fifth and Grand. Because of the CDOT requirements that we go through for and for, that those kinds of reviews until we're ready to go out for bid. Parks is total percent realized 51%. Water utility revenue. So here's where we're, it says percent realized 9%. Well, we were hoping to do the loans and move forward with a number of projects that are still in design. So those are really going to be a 2025 project. But at the end of the day, that number that you want to see is a net income or loss, parentheses or loss. We've seen a net income in water of $71,407.72. That's a good position to be in, especially if we're debt funding, $7.5 million worth of projects next year. So it's a good position. Wastewater, this one also is inflated, but we're actually seeing positive here with $241,547.05. So that's good, that income. Part of that was due to a wastewater rate increase 22 that, or was it 23? But we're seeing those increases come through. Sanitation. So this was the one that was on that downward trajectory for years, and in 23 we corrected course. In sanitation, budget to actual now, we are looking at a net income of $74,386.69. We're on the right course to be able to afford programs like perhaps town provided trash cans for residents that work well with our trash truck, with upgrades to our trash truck for future capital improvements in 25, 26, and 27. North Fork Valley Airport is still yet to hear back from the county on whether or not they're going to fund the geotech. If they don't, your decision was contingent on them coming up with their share of it. I'm still waiting to hear back from them, and we have a meeting with Commissioner Coombs in two weeks, where we'll ask again what their plans are. But that is it for,
On the budget to actuals.
May I, just because I always like to do a little time to review, if I have questions next week or next meeting, can I just give you a little time for that?
you know, I apologize that they didn't get into the packet. That was.
Okay. On to actions and presentations. And the first agenda item is consideration of the Board of Trustees directing the Public Safety Committee to investigate ORVs being used within the town of Paonia. And so this was one of the projects that we had included when the Public Safety Committee was created and approved. So now we're just kind of getting back to it for the Public Safety Committee, which is Trustee Check and Trustee Hunt. And in that, I created a little cover report about the situation that the state of Colorado passed legislation, I believe it was 21, to disallow the use of OHVs within towns. But there's an exception that towns can decide to let them do it with various caveats, depending on what the town wants to do. So on page 25 of the agenda packet is the statute that was passed. And I bolded subsection F, which says when local political subdivisions have authorized by ordinance or resolution the establishment of off-road vehicle routes to permit the operation of off-highway vehicles, city streets or county roads, but no street or road which is part of the state highway system may so be designated. So at this point, the other thing that I included at the end, which is on the bottom of page 26, is there is a link to a website that tracks, I don't know how up to date it is, but it shows you what towns in Colorado have made provisions to allow for OHVs and what criteria they attach that I thought would be of interest for the Public Safety Committee, and I'm sure Officer Lemminger, Chief Lemminger has some thoughts. So now it's really a trustee decision as to whether you want to assign this particular project to the Public Safety Committee. So any discussion?
I appreciate you getting the Colorado statute here for us to review. And it's a good place to start for us.
Well, let me do one thing. If anybody from the audience like to make a comment on this agenda item? Yes.
I just want to know why.
Can you please come to the podium and just give us your name and
Yes.
address?
So
Thank you.
Marty Durden. I live in Paonia and I'm writing for the shopper and also doing occasional reports for KBNF. And I saw the town of Moab be ruined by OHVs when I lived there. And because of the noise primarily. And I'm wondering why you would even think of allowing them on our city streets.
Thank you. Trustee comments? Trustee Schwartz? Oh, I'm sorry. See your hand.
Okay, I have trouble hearing back there sometimes. You're on, the multi-use vehicles, a little.
The OHVs, yeah.
Yeah. Someone recently mentioned to me that her nephew or some relative comes into town to plow her driveway, and he has to transverse town to get to her house. So in her case, it would be a hardship if they were forbidden.
So there's a reason.
What?
There's a reason.
Any other from the public? Seeing none, trustees?
Any comment? I just have a question for Trustee Hunter. Given that you are now on the planning commission until we have a new trustee, I'm like, oh, wow, that's a lot on your plate, but you can speak for yourself.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Would someone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to request the Public Safety Committee to investigate the use of HOVs within the town of Paonia town limits.
Wait a second.
Sorry, so it should be OHVs and not HOVs. We're not talking
Oh, sorry.
higher emergency vehicles, right?
Yes.
Sorry. Can't keep a type symbol.
We have a second, or is it gonna die?
Will you just restate your motion?
Oh. Motion to request that the Public Safety Committee investigate the use of OHVs within the town of Paone town limits.
I second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Words, John, good. Thank you. Let's see, agenda item number 2, consideration of pro-con statements for the ballot issue with the site to go along with the sidewalk fee to be added to the ballot in November. And if I could just start with a question to look better. Do you know if there is a word limit on a pro-con statement? Are these actually on the ballot or in the blue book?
I think they're in the blue book. But I don't know the answer to that one, which is why I primarily have you ask your town attorney about this. He's probably gonna have much better advice for you than me. This is my first ballot issue. But I did want to let you guys know that everything was in on time and I did approve the proof for the ballot today. So thank you for the extra work to get that done. I appreciate it.
Is that, Clay, are you comfortable answering a question about word limits for the pro-con statements on the blue book? Clay? Here we go.
Can you see me?
Yes, you're there now, thanks.
All right.
Were you able to hear my question?
Would you repeat it, please?
Yeah, I was wondering if there's a word limit on the pro-con statements that go along with a ballot language in the blue book.
Yeah, typically there is. It's a, I don't think it's a word limit. It is. I don't know it offhand, so don't quote me on, but it's like, it's not short either. There is. I can get that answer for you.
Okay.
But I think it's significant, like 2,000 words or something like that.
Okay, thanks. With that, sorry, go ahead. So would anyone from the public like to speak on the pro-con issues for the sidewalk fee going on the ballot? Okay, seeing none, turn it back to the trustees because I think we get to create some language.
A question. What is, and this might be a Clay question, I'm not sure who this is a question for, but what is the right procedure to get this done? Because I believe we talked about a 9/21 deadline to have the pro-con statement in.
And our next meeting is not till the
After that,
24th,
right?
right?
So what does that process look like? Is that something that staff would typically draft? It's not.
I've never done a memo, so nothing on that, nothing for a ballot decision, but I'm sure staff can draft something.
But we don't have an opportunity to see it in public. Because of
I
that.
would suggest then that you would do like a special meeting to review it, because you have to approve it.
Are you all comfortable with proposing some language as maybe what's it called, a straw man or whatever, for the staff to have some bullet points to work from? Yes, trustee Hunt?
Yeah, I mean, I had notes from our last work session where we had talked about having explanation of what has been done to date with the sidewalk fund. And an explanation of why more hasn't been done, and then how the new fee fund will actually result in new and improved sidewalks. Those are my notes from the work session.
So you have a couple pro things there, it sounds like.
Well, right, yeah, I guess my main thing was, I know it's a big pill to swallow, and just taking that opportunity to try to explain what has been done, what we want to do is why we're asking to continue this.
I wouldn't think it'd be necessary for us to put in a con for the public to, a reason to vote against it, that I can think of. It's a minimal fee and we're not gonna increase it. So I don't think we need to give them, I mean, there'll probably be a lot of people already who just not want to continue sidewalk fee, saying they don't have sidewalks. But like Trustee Hunter said, it's, if we just point out the pros of having the fund and what it has gone to in the past, and the fact that we're not going to increase it would be points, bullet points to put in pro. Vote for the sidewalk tax.
Mr. Stilter, you had your hand up too.
Yeah, one of the cons is if this fee is voted down, we're gonna have to revert after the fund is exhausted. And we have 90,000 something at this point. And that's about, what, 3 city blocks? 3 long blocks?
No way.
Maybe not.
No way.
And if we don't, we're gonna go back to the old law where you're responsible for your sidewalk in front of your house. And
That's
people
still
on
kind
the
of
corner.
pro.
Yeah,
But
well,
I mean,
it's,
it seems pro voting for it anyway. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
okay. Sam has her hand up, so I didn't know if you had any edification on.
I actually think that the town attorney might want to weigh in.
Oh, okay, thanks. Sorry. Go ahead, Clay.
Oh, I don't have anything pressing or opinion oriented I wanted to say. Did I?
Oh.
I don't know.
Oh.
Maybe I look like I want to. I will say that I pulled up the CCR and the pro con limit is 500 words for each. So I was off. It's not 2,000, it's 1,000. Limited to 500 for pro and 500 for con.
Thanks.
whole lot.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
Clay, can you tell us, I thought I had heard that we don't have to do a con, that public can do a con, but we only had to do a pro. Is that true? Like, are we required?
It depends on, I think it depends on how the ballot language is proposed. Typically, I think you have to do both. You have to present an objective. You know, you want to present both sides. I have seen where you allow for the public to write pros and cons statements, and you incorporate those statements from the public comments as your pro con statements. That might be what you're referring to. If the town wanted to do their own pro and then allow different cons to be made by the public, I think that's fine. But I do think you want both sides of the coin on there. And I've seen it done both ways where, you know, it really depends on whose ballot initiative it is, what you want to do with it. And quite frankly, like the ballot stuff and the voting stuff is so complicated that it's like, it's not necessarily a case of first impression for me, but there's so many numbers and rules and things that I don't just have it off the top of my head. It's one of those things that I pull out my regulations and CCRs and guides for, because it's constantly changing and it's wildly complex. You know, and so I just don't know a lot of the voting rules off the top of my head. You know, a clerk with 20 years experience and, you know, 50 elections under their belt might be able to answer more questions off the cuff, but even then they're still looking stuff up. So, but my experience has been that you want pros and cons, and yes, you can solicit the public to provide either or.
And we kind of don't have time to do that. Trustee Schwartz?
Well, I think a con could be it's $3 a month, 36 a year. I mean, that's the biggest con I think that there is with it. It could just be that basic.
I think that is the only thing that would be a negative. $3 a month. Seems like pretty trivial. But
Sorry, I already did public comment. Sorry.
With the con statement, it would be nice if.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Suzanne. I asked if people wanted to come up and you
Your
didn't.
resolution says that comment happens after the discussion. And I know
Does
you're
it?
not following it anymore.
Sorry.
but Technically, that's what the public comment portion says. Since you're not allowing written cons, it would be nice if you'd open it up.
Hang on, let me have Sam, just go back and look at our resolution in here, sorry. And let's just keep talking in the meantime. Well, wouldn't a con be that if people vote it down, there's very likely not gonna be much new sidewalk built?
You go back to the old way where you have to pay for redoing your sidewalk in front of your house. That's the way it was before. And we took that away because it became a financial burden for a lot of people, especially a corner lot where you might have 150 feet on one direction and 100 feet the other way. That's a lot of sidewalk. It's virtually a half a block.
Well, and I would just wonder if that actually was ever imposed. No, really. You know, in reality, how would the town make somebody,
Well, it's in the
unless they
code.
put a
It was
lien,
in the code.
right, but I mean, practically, is that done? I don't know. Did you have a comment?
I can't tell you what happened in the past, but if it's in the code, we try to enforce it. So
But what do you do when people say, no, we don't have much recourse, do we? Other than a lien on the property?
I'd have to review.
And I don't think there was a lien provision in there.
And let me just interrupt, Suzanne is correct. After discussion of an agenda item has concluded, the mayor shall open the floor for comment. Members of the public, so hang on. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit more. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna answer the
Yeah,
question that
You really, thanks. I decided I could scroll and look too, because I knew where to find it. So the con could be, it goes back to the way it was, where the homeowner was totally responsible for it, which is maybe not actual because of the code. I don't know how much it's enforced. Yes, trustee Bet, or do that all the time, or better, yes.
I was gonna say that, it's actually pretty, if you remember the stuff I gave you for the first, work session we had on the sidewalk fee, that's actually what prompted the discussion of the sidewalk fee, was because the sidewalks were in such bad shape and the town was gonna start requiring people to fix them, and it came down to a lot of homeowners couldn't, and they asked the town to come up with a solution, so I think it, might think on that one a little bit more.
Kind of a con. Yes, trustee.
I was on the council when we did this, and that's exactly what the problem was. We had virtually every citizen saying, look, we can't afford it. Because it had a very minimum, 25 to 50 feet of sidewalk was set up, and disposal of the old and everything else, you're probably talking somewhere around $800. And 25 feet, most lots are 50 to 75 feet wide. And then, of course, corner lots, the house, it goes back 150 feet one way. And it can really add up to her. And then a corner lot also, if you fix that corner, you have to put the ramps in, handicap ramps. And that may be at the expense of the town, but by code, if you fix the sidewalk, you have to fix the handicap access ramps.
So it's a con. Right? Okay, any more pro discussion?
Would we want to put in there the idea of the sidewalk match? Where,
I thought we already did the language. The language is an issue.
no, I mean
Not
for the
match.
pros, in the pro language? Like, would we want to talk about that?
I'm a little concerned.
I think that would conflate the issue.
Yeah.
Right, so that's a separate policy decision that would come afterwards. So what we'd be looking at is, that $3 would be funding the town's 50% towards that program. And then, a resident would still be on the hook for 50%, but the issue at hand is, do we want to have this $3 sidewalk fee? And then afterwards, we can talk about a policy.
I think to put it in there as a pro is essentially, unless we vote on it tonight, that we're gonna do a 50-50 match. Then
Is
we're
it something
assuming
like
a
town is
policy.
considered, can we say town would consider? Is considering doing a 50-50 match to help augment this fund? Because there has been a lot of support for that. And it's something that I think we're interested in. So I'm just wondering if there's a way we can be a little bit vaguer.
I think that's a Clay question.
Like, can we be a little vague in there about mentioning something we're considering?
Sure.
Trustee Stover.
One of the things that you're gonna see is sticker shock when they really see how much it's gonna cost. And it's gonna be significant. You have to bring your everything with you, and you still have to dispose of the concrete. And we have no place. We used to take it to the gravel pit and they crushed it up and then put it back into cement. But that's no longer available to us. So now we have nothing. We don't have a facility. We don't have a place to store it. And I think we could haul it maybe to Delta. I believe they have one. But Delta's a long way away and it's an expensive haul. And we don't really have a big enough truck to make the haulage practical. So we might have to hire that out.
Can I just follow up? So your point being that even the 50% match, if you're having to tear out old sidewalk, is still gonna be expensive.
Yeah.
But
If we're
with
patching, that's different.
But in the meantime, the town probably can't afford to do it 100% either,
You're not gonna get much.
depending on how much you want done in the town. So it's that trade-off of,
And
we're not gonna
when
get
this
much-
discussion last time was people said, we can't afford it at all. And a lot of the fixed income people, they were like, we can't, we're gonna be done. And so the decision was made to just fully fund that. And you gotta remember that this was quite some years ago and the cost of concrete went up almost 50% last year. And it went up 200% the year before. And in 2000, when China was building the world's largest dam, it went up a lot more.
right, well, we're kind of getting away from the pro-con state. Everything you're saying is true, but we need to go back to what content of the pro. And according to Clay, to put out a potential promise of a 50-50 is somewhat okay. That makes me uncomfortable, but I don't vote.
I too think, the ballot, I thought we had decided that we are going to have to extend the $3 fee. And so now we're just trying to decide on what we're going to have in pro and con argument for the ballot issue. But the ballot issue has already been decided about.
Right.
It's just a continuation of the $3 fee.
I had that in my notes too from the workshop that we would keep the 50-50 split separate.
I think it's a great thing to talk about, but
Well, and Madam Mayor, let me be clear. You can do it, but you can't promise it on the side. It's got to be in the ballot language.
oh, it's not. Okay, never mind.
Thank you.
Okay.
You can create policy around it and create a program like the 50-50 program, but you can't put it as like a pro or a con of the ballot language, because you can't promise something that you don't, the next board might not do it. So you either have to put it in the ballot language and you can create a policy after the fact, but you can't promise it, in the ballot.
No, that makes way more sense. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
And thank you for clarifying once you heard where we were on this. So, at this point, if the audience would like to come up and give us some help, with a comment. Suzanne, if you want to come up. Thank you.
One of the cons is that you've added, the old sidewalk fee was solely for repair. People didn't want to see new sidewalks and trails and pathways. So you're just making, and you've barely gotten very much done just with the repair. So you're using the same fee, but now you're also adding new sidewalks to that, which is very expensive. So that's a con. The money isn't gonna be going as far. I do wanna say that, the $3 fee, which people are paying for now, they think it's gonna cover the whole cost of the replacement because there's never been a 50-50 policy. So I think that would be kind of shocking to some people because it's still gonna be a lot of money if the town comes in and decides it wants to do your sidewalk. I think one of the problems is it sounds like you've got to come up with some answers about how you do sidewalks, and maybe these are all policies, but in the past, it was more limited. You know, you do sidewalk planing, you replace 3 squares that look bad, but what seems to have happened in the last several years is that huge swaths of sidewalk need to be replaced because you're hiring contractors, and that's what makes it most cost effective, I guess, for the town. But it's gonna make it really hard for homeowners too. I don't see why we can't be a little bit more conservative about how we do sidewalk repairs and just do repairs. They're not gonna be as fancy and slick as a whole new sidewalk, but we can afford whole new sidewalks everywhere, in my opinion. So I think the con in my mind is mostly that you're talking about expanding this to new sidewalks instead of just repairing sidewalks. And people, there's no guarantee of what this $3 is gonna be covering at this point because the policy is so open. And you are talking about some vast changes. And before you start talking about the cost of disposing concrete, I think you need to sit down and get some numbers so you can have good projections instead. In the past, when people voted for this, the way the town got them to do it was they sent threatening letters to the little old ladies in this town about putting liens on their houses. And that's what got people to vote for it. And that's what Rick Stelter is suggesting. Thank you.
Yes, trustee Hunter.
I'd like to make a motion that we request staff to draft a pro-con statement and schedule a special meeting. The trustees to review it before September 21st.
I'll second.
Discussion from the administrator.
I started writing things down.
Oh. Any other discussion with trustees?
We'll have to schedule a meeting before the 21st, maybe about the 19th. I don't have my calendar right up.
Just to clarify, so the 21st is actually a Saturday, which is by the 20th would be better, so.
Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursday, so you got Friday to finish.
I can't do it, I'm the election official, so. All we can do is turn it in and stuff.
Okay.
And did you have a date in your motion?
I said before the 21st
Okay.
deadline, but I didn't propose anything for the meeting.
There's a second. Any other, do we have the date piece of this taken care of that we know it has to be approved by the 19th?
The 20th is a Friday.
But do you want to cut it that close? No,
If you do it on Thursday, the 19th, I will be unavailable.
okay, but could you create content for us to vote on the 19th?
I have surgery that day.
Oh, that's right. So we're gonna have to do it earlier.
About the 8th.
Can I just ask the question of staff? When would be ideal for you? When do you think the draft would be ready for our review?
Friday, 13th. We could have it by Friday, the 13th.
So really, any date the week of the 16th would work for our special meeting. Tuesday, I usually have the room open for you guys anyways, just for in case we have special meetings, since you guys tend to have your Tuesdays a little bit more open. That's like Tuesday, the 17th. I'm available now.
Mhm.
I have an orthopedic surgeon consult that day.
But we'll be back. I'm giving him a ride.
No.
That's why I say that. But we should be back. Are you thinking you'll be in bad shape?
Don't know.
Oh.
See what he does.
Well, John, are you hearing these dates being thrown out? Trustee Valentine, sorry. Are you available on the 17th?
Let's see, I think I'm unmuted. At
Oh.
5 o'clock, we have a tree board meeting.
So I think we'd go at 6:30.
Yes,
Okay. And that way, if you're disposed or if you're not feeling great, then we have a forum.
Kind of cat.
I can do it.
You're the man driving him. But that way, if you are, yeah, we'd have a forum. Okay. All right, we need a vote. Sorry, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Aye.
Okay, was it? I'm sorry.
17. Okay. All right. Agenda item number 3. Is everybody caught up to themselves with their notes and their calendars? Yes.
Verify trustee Stelter, were you the one who seconded that?
Yes.
Okay. Agenda item number 3, consideration of directing the town attorney drafting resolution or ordinance for trustee email addresses and use of town-owned devices for trustees and or citizen commissioners, DBOA members. And Clerk Benner, I'd kind of like to turn it back to you just to go through your staff report. You want to summarize?
As soon as I remind myself that. 1 second, I apologize.
Page 27.
Okay. Okay, so, up until recently, or at least when I was on the board is when we first officially went digital. With packets and agendas and stuff like that. And at that time, part of that was that they approved for the board to be bought either, the board of trustees to either be bought a tablet or a laptop with the operating system of their choice, you know, a simple one to do that digital process. I haven't been here since then, so I don't know, I don't believe anybody on our current board has a device. But we've had several requests for that, and then we've also had some issues with people using the town issued email address because of the authenticator, which has to be there for our regulations. So I've had a little bit of concern not only about security with some of the stuff that we send out for those things. Of course, staff, we all have to follow this. I mean, we use it, we have the authenticators, we have, you know, that's just part of our thing, but we'd like to see a policy that requires elected officials and or board members to also use their town issued email address. Not only for the security reasons, but I don't have access to anybody's emails if they're using one that's not issued by the town. And as the custodian of records, if somebody tries to borrow somebody's emails for town business and stuff, I can't guarantee that I can have it. So, but that's something that is up to you guys. And as for the devices, well, you know, it's an expenditure. And so, and then going off of elected officials versus volunteers on boards and stuff, you know, the difference is there. And it's, again, it's just really a better board decision and policy being set so that it just stays the way, whatever's decided, it stays that way. And then we don't have the vagueness that we had recently.
Trustee Stiltner.
As far as the devices, we had some old devices, but generally they won't run on any modern software. And the batteries are all gone on all of those. So we'd have to buy new devices. And I think that maybe we should separate the buy the devices part to this, because budget season's coming up, and I would like to see budget before I expend, up to say $12,000 on laptops. I just bought one. It's $1,800. So, and my son actually bought it for me. So, but I know how much it costs. And I shopped, and cheap ones that'll actually do what we need to do. They'll run about $1,200.
Can I ask you guys a question? So when I access like Microsoft, my email or my calendar from my home device, I don't have to do an authenticator. So do you have to use an authenticator? You have to authenticate. I know that there's an option where you can sign in with your Microsoft ID, and if you use your town provided email and the password, you don't have to do an authenticator. And so
Since this year, it has been for me,
you've had to, because
Like every time you sign in?
every time.
I don't have that.
I think I had to do it the first time and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because it's every time.
I have it on
And they
my
call my phone and I get
phone,
a,
my work computer, my laptop.
okay, well,
So the only time I've ever had to use my authenticator is if I've used a different device or something like that, in which case, that's kind of what it's there for. If somebody gets a hold of your town issued something or, yeah, it's supposed to provide security, so
So
others can't get access to it.
so it's a safety feature then. It's kind of like a secondary email. So, because I'm looking at my authenticators and I've got them from login.gov, ID&E.
Yeah.
The Department of Interior, the things that I have to do to log into our financial grant stuff, I've got those. But when I log in, like even from my phone, virtually, I go to the website, office.com, and type in my username and password. So my email address, my username, and then my password for that email address, and I get right in. So I don't know if an authenticator is even necessary.
It is necessary because of regulations that have been passed for IT security, for cybersecurity.
It just knows who you
It's,
Maybe
the computer logs your authentication. Once it's initially you have to type it in.
there's a
But after
separate,
that-
but there's a separate authenticator. They call you on your cell phone, either call you or text you. And then I get a code and then I input the code. It's usually a five or 6 letter.
I helped you set yours up, trustee check, and obviously you haven't had to visit since.
Well, I'm gonna get mine for
Well, I think the bottom line is that in order to use the town email, at some point, we all created an authenticator, because I have one, but sounds to me like maybe you and phones should get together, because I don't have to do that. And maybe it's because you have a new computer, I don't know, but
It happened with my old one too.
yeah.
It just, all of a sudden, when we did the training, it changed.
Hmm.
When we did the training
Yeah.
way back when. And it's all of a sudden.
I'd say you shouldn't have to do that.
Yes,
trustee Knight.
May I ask a question of staff about the devices? I hear what trustee Stelter is saying, and I'm just looking for confirmation from you. What devices do we have? Are they operable? Could they become what is the status of the devices that we have?
Okay. So the devices that we have finally come back from phones. We've taken all of the information that was on them, wiped them, and so re-imaged them. They're not in good condition. So what I would say is on our surplus list that's due to me on Friday, though they will be on a surplus list.
So any devices would need to be purchased.
That's correct. And so in my experience, I've seen that some devices have been provided for like elected officials, trustees, council members, mayor. And that's because, you have to follow the same kind of personnel policies and things like that we do. for like citizen boards or resident boards, I've never provided a device for any of them. I did have one when I was a county plan commissioner in Indiana, for my very first meeting, and then they got taken away and we never got it back. And so, and there was some reasoning behind that, but, and we only got them, we didn't get to take them home. They were only given to us at meetings and then picked back up. And so I don't know if that's something you guys want to do. That's why it's really a decision that, you know, is outside of staff or my ability to make, it's gotta be to the board, since all of our committees, commissions, all report to the Board of Trustees.
Can we separate the two, because, maybe we can just talk about emails first and then make a decision and then move forward to equipment. And in my mind, it makes so much sense for us to have town issued email addresses for the Board of Trustees and our citizen committees. There's too many issues that happen, like I'm on a board, we don't have, on one of the boards I'm on, we don't have email addresses. I wasn't getting anything because it was being sent to the wrong email. And it's just so many things can happen. So in just the idea of the query request and for you to be able to access that information, I think is huge. So I'm in 100% in favor of town email addresses. Then it's very clear.
Can I just interrupt 1 second? Clay, in order to create a consistent policy regarding email, does it need to be done in a formal manner, ordinance versus resolution or something else?
No, I think it can be done by resolution. It'd be much like a, like your employee handbook. It would be like a, a trustee handbook guidelines.
And you do have a trustee handbook, so we need to go into that.
I'll speak to that.
So any other comments on email? So we probably need a motion regarding, well, maybe, hang on 1 second. I'm just wondering if, well, this could be done in the same resolution, but 2 different motions. I think it would be good. And anybody from the audience have a comment on our email situation? Okay, seeing none. Do you want to do 2 separate motions that maybe both feed into a same resolution? Does that make sense, Clay? Okay, well,
I would do the 2 different decisions. And you can pass a resolution that changes the like the handbook or the trustee guide in 2 different places. And so I can draft a resolution regardless, however you want. It could be single, I could hit both issues, but I would just make sure that your vote and direction is singular.
so we could have 2 motions put to the same resolution. Okay.
Sure. I mean, it could just be have a motion for one to direct me to draft a resolution, have a motion for the other to draft a resolution, and then, let staff determine what will be most efficient and convenient as far as passing the resolution, if they need to be separate or together, et cetera.
It just seems like they could be in the same resolution because it's dealing with electronics, but okay. So with that in mind, you want to start again with your email idea, start with a motion regarding the use of town email.
I motion that we direct the town attorney to draft a resolution requiring that all trustees and citizen committee members are required to use town issued email addresses.
I'll second that.
Yes.
Sorry, I just want to clarify on that. So we already have planning commission addresses for the 3. So would you want ones created for the zoning board of adjustments members?
And tree board.
Okay, and tree board. Okay, just want to make sure.
Discussion on the motion? We haven't voted. We got a second. Did we get a second?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm good. swallowing it.
Oh,
Oh, what is it?
yeah,
I would like the latitude to be able to work with Clay instead of just the town attorney, to be able to work with him on creating a resolution. So, but
does that need to be in the resolution or no? Okay. We can,
I think, like I said, I'll swallow it, it's good.
okay.
I'll call him.
So in that case, any further discussion on the emails?
Sorry, who's second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So then round two, the device issue, which I think I would like to discuss a little bit more. Just hear what you all have to say a little bit more. Do you want to hear what I have to say? So, I guess at this point, I don't want a town device. I like using my own. So I think it could be potentially be an ad hoc thing if there's a trustee that doesn't have a device, but I don't know. But I really am not comfortable giving citizens town property as a commissioner or anything like that. I just don't know. They're not an employee. We're employees and we have to follow the same personnel rules. So I'm not comfortable giving town property for someone to take home. That using it at a meeting is another thing, but we'd also have to buy more devices. But those are my thoughts. Trustee Hunt.
I honestly don't see a need for the added expense. I agree completely with what you're saying about, if we were to provide devices, it would be limited to the board. And I haven't heard anybody ask or want device on the board.
I agree with trustee Stelter that we ought to at least wait till we see the budget to even consider it. So I'd say let's put this off, the decision to have town provided devices.
And I've got two trustees.
Two trustees.
But I feel like we need a policy about whether town owns property can go to citizens. Because we don't have anything on that. Yes, trustee Schwartz.
Okay, even though I have paper tonight, I really do use a lot of computers. But I don't think it makes sense for us as very, very part-time employees on most weeks to be provided a town computer, all the additional expense, the maintenance of it, all of those things, it doesn't make sense. I think if you decide to be a trustee, whether you have a computer or you borrow one, it's not the town's responsibility to provide it. And I feel the same way about citizen committees, because it is so very, very part-time, and that I think is a requirement. If you're going to apply to be on a citizen committee or a town trustee, you have to figure it out on your own. It's not town's responsibility. And I don't need to wait to for the budget. I think it's just a solid no for me.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that. I don't want to kick the can down the road anymore. I think we need a policy.
Any input from the audience? Any discussion? Would somebody like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we not issue town-owned computers, electronic devices to the town trustees nor board member, citizen board members. I'll second that.
Trustee.
Can we maybe massage that just to state that in the other resolution as part of policy?
Yes, I'll amend the resolution to do that. That we not issue electronic devices to the town board members nor citizen board members. And you have language?
You want me to just take a stab at it?
Sure. Go for it. Good.
There's a motion in a second.
Yeah,
Yeah, so do we need to do an amendment?
an amendment to the first motion, correct?
Yeah.
So were it me making a motion, what I would say is that I move to add to the previous resolution that the town attorney is working on a policy stating the town does not provide electronic devices to Board of Trustees and commissions.
Perfect.
Is that,
I'm sorry, can I hear that again? Were you trying, you can't amend the first motion that's already passed. Did I mishear you? I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah,
I
so
was-
guys, what you have to do is the person who seconded has to withdraw their second, and the person who made the motion has to withdraw their motion, and then you can start over.
I'll withdraw my second.
I'll withdraw my first.
I'd like to make a motion.
I should have been typing the last.
This is good.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay. I move that we instruct town staff and the attorney to include in the resolution concerning town emails a policy stating that the town does not provide devices for trustees and or citizen commissioner or CVOA members. Or tree board.
I'll second that.
discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion passes. Our last agenda item, number 4, is a kind of a housekeeping issue. And so we have been charging a banner fee and have an application for it. I am not familiar that there's anything in our code that says that we can let people hang banners through this application. So that's one half of this. And then the other piece of it is the, let's see, the last page, the application for street closure, which is on page 31. It references the $500 deposit. However, the resolution 21-203, which was fees, inadvertently did not include the $500 deposit into the fee structure. And that is provided, the ordinance for street closure says that a deposit can be determined through a resolution. And I gave a potential on page 29. I just did a quick underline, which is under resolution, page 1 of resolution 21-2023, street closure permits, simply add after the semicolon and a $500 deposit. Yes.
Okay, rather than just directing Clay, can you direct me to do this, and then Clay can review it? Because it looks like there's an ordinance and then a change to our fee resolution schedule, which we've got a couple other things that need to be adjusted as well. So,
right, and it seems like they're separate. We don't have an ordinance for the banner permit. So I don't know where that would go, but so that also needs to be created. Does that make sense? Let's have some discussion. I'm sure wide open. And did you all see there's a banner? We have been charging for people to hang, and I think it's just for the intersection at 3rd and Grand, right?
Yes.
It's the only place.
It's
Is our goal?
Okay, sorry.
we do have another banner location out at.
Yeah. I think Arnold is the only one that uses it, though we do operate when we have conflicting, like one long-term, long-running event and one.
Because the permit's really designed for that short-term hanging for 2 weeks, like for the Harvest Fest, and they have to be a nonprofit. So this is being done for quite some time now. I just don't think there's an ordinance approving a banner permit. So that needs to have Clay and the administrator work on that as well. Can I just add one more thing, thinking about our goal? So for somebody like them that has it up all summer, are they just paying $50?
I'll have to get back to you on that, because I don't know. For Arnold, let's put that up at 20 weeks.
So I'm just want to throw more, so would we allow 5 banners on that town property for all summer? They're just, the
This
reason
would
I'm
be a
asking.
wonderful thing for an ordinance
Yeah,
to consider.
right, because I'm thinking the ordinance needs to be more prescriptive. So. But I didn't really think of that when I put this in here, sorry. So, and I'll be quiet. Anybody else have some comments? Trustee Hunter.
So I don't think it'd be a bad idea to split that into two motions, and I'm ready to make them if there's no further discussion. All right, I move that we direct staff to work on drafting an ordinance regarding the banner permits.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second motion. I move that we revise resolution, that staff revises resolution with consult of the attorney. Resolution 21-2023 to insert a deposit of $500 for this, for the banner. Street closure, sorry.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
All in
Can I
favor?
have a little discussion?
Oh,
Aye.
sorry.
Would that also include updating the forms?
It can be wherever you want it to
Yes,
be.
Yeah.
that would include updating the forms.
Okay.
You want to did anyone second your motion?
I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you want to modify, do you need that in motion? I'll ask. that.
No,
Okay.
Okay. But yeah, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Righty. Thank you, John, from afar. This meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.